played 11th, and I got some thoughts. Let's dive into that.
Here at Tattoo Tabletop, we have a lot of fun, so be sure to like, share, subscribe. It's all completely free, and it helps me out. And if you really want to help me out, come join our Patreon. Link is in the description where you can come post and talk about your favorite minis. Now back to the video.
Welcome to Tattoo Tabletop. My name is James, and today is Sunday, the 14th. I have just returned from a week-long trip visiting the Tabletop Titans and playing some 11th edition games. First and foremost, again, a massive thank you to Tabletop Titans for having me out, especially over the launch week and trusting me with handling that. I had an absolute blast. I got to learn so much. I got to play a ton. It was a dream come true for me, especially to be a part of that launch event. Really meant a ton to me. So now I'm back, and I actually have a few games under my belt, and I can give you kind of my initial thoughts. How do I feel about 11th edition so far? I like it. I really do. I actually kind of like it. I think it's going to take some getting used to for sure. We already know a ton of the big changes. Obviously, I'll talk about them very, very briefly because of the fact that I'm sure, like me, most of you have been consuming the content pretty regularly. Oh, here's the change of this. Oh, here's the change of that. Here's the change of that. And I feel like we kind of have a little bit of that. But I'll also talk about things that I think probably impact the game a little bit more, things that impact it less, and we'll kind of work our way up from there. So let's start with the changes. Some of the changes that I think are really good. Cover being a -1 to your ballistic skill, I think is great. It does make things a little interesting. I mean, there are some factions that obviously hit on 4s, going up to 5s and stuff like that. It can be very, very tricky. Your two biggest keywords that you're going to be looking for in when creating a list most of the time is going to be ignores cover. That's going to be very, very important because specifically when you're talking about things and abilities like stealth, stealth just gives you cover out in the open. So realistically, if you're a stealth unit and you're out in the open, you're gonna be like, aha, I am in cover, but also then ignores cover, just ignores that anyway. So that's a big difference and it's a big change. The biggest thing will be, and this is something I learned quite a few times while playing my games, is when it comes to piling and consolidations, if you're in a fight, you might want to get a few more bodies on there, but don't move unless you can still be partially on the terrain. That's very, very important. Just because there was a time on my game where I played against Adrian's Astra Militarum. If you want to go check that out, I will link all the live streams down in the description down below. But there was a time where I piled in to get more fighters in there, and I ended up stepping a scout off. Now, why is that important? Because one neophyte stepped off the template, that means when that unit backed up and Adrian got to shoot, that was all, there was one model not in cover, so they all were in cover. So that is a very, very important distinction. It's no longer model to model. So it's going to be, hey, this one's not in cover, they're all not in cover. Until obviously after that activation, you kill that one first. Let's say it kills 2, you take that one off and you take the other. Then the next shooting activation in cover. So make sure you're very conscientious about that. Other big changes that I really like is I love the change to the fly keyword just being a -2 to movement. That's fantastic. It's part of the reason why I think I'm going to start with Drukhari for this edition. I am very excited to give that a shot, and I think that they're going to have some great tools to play their dispositions. So I'm really excited to try that out. The other side is dispositions. I'm actually just really excited about dispositions because you're no longer playing necessarily the same game. Now, what do I mean by that? That means when you're choosing building your army, you use your detachments and then you indicate your disposition in your list writing, and that is how you're going to pair up into your matches. Now, that means that you're going to be trying to do different things than your opponent. If your opponent's just purge the foe, that's all they're trying to do is they're just trying to kill you and get you off of stuff. But if you're doing things like priority assets or something like that, maybe you need to be on center objective. Maybe you need to be able to do an actionable thing. That's going to be very, very important. And you're really going to have to build your list into that disposition. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of large shifts is how people manage their dispositions and how they build for it. Because you could have something where, oh, this army is really good at this disposition and it's really good at this disposition, but it's really difficult at these two. So maybe that's something you avoid or something like that. Or maybe there's just different units you need to bring for it. I think it's going to add an extra layer of strategic capability to the game without horribly overcomplicating it. It is very, very interesting, especially because, at least from the couple of games that we played, there was the end scoring where you got your main scoring, and then there's an end condition that actually bypasses the limit that you can score in a turn to get you much further. There was quite a few times where games felt much more within reach, because even though I was down 25, 30 points, there were turns that I had where I bumped up a ton of points, came up, made up a ton, and it really closed the game in those final seconds. So if I'm going to give you any piece of advice on 11th edition, is even if it doesn't feel good, or even if you're like, oh, I lose this game, don't don't think that. Just play through the rest. It's important to learn the new rhythm and pacing of the game, and also understanding what you are able to do when you're running low on units towards the later steps of the game, or even if your opponent blows you off the table. There's going to be possibilities for you to probably still do some things with some of those units. Just keep that in mind. The other big one is obviously holding on to secondary cards. Secondary cards are going to still be a very important thing. That being said, there was a game, again, the Black Templar one, where it really wanted me to be in Adrian's deployment zone doing things. What I probably should have done is, at the end of my turn, I should have just binned some of them, because realistically, then I'm still fishing for these kind of things. They could get me points, they might not give me points, but CP might have been a little bit more valuable in that instance. So you can hold on to those cards, but maybe once you get to a certain point, if you're thinking, I could really use a CP here and I'm probably not going to score this, just bin it, get something new. I think it's going to help you out a ton.
Today's video is sponsored by The Forge for all your hobby nerd needs. Whether it's Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, Marvel Crisis Protocol, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Lorcana, and a plethora of board games, The Forge has what you need. The Forge has been my go-to shop, and the inventory has only grown. If there's something you don't see on the shelves, fill out a product request form on their website. Thank you to The Forge for sponsoring this video.
So those are some of the few changes that really came up a lot. Why do I particularly think that 11th edition is going to be good? Just because it did feel very smooth. Once I got used to, a lot of the mechanics, and there's a couple things that I think people are for sure going to miss. A good example is piling out your models after a transport is destroyed, and then placing them to make sure that they're all placed, which that's no different than before. But the big difference is you place them all, roll your hazardous checks or your desperate breakout tests. So, ones and twos, you're taking mortals, and then roll to see if your transport explodes. This means that a transport exploding on a 6 is going to be a lot bigger, because now you're placing your models around the vehicle, which also you have to place them as close to the hull as possible. So if you can get closer to the hull and your opponent's not within engagement range, you have to wrap the entire thing. So that is very, very important. There are going to be some people that I think are going to go into the reflex mode and just pile out their dudes and stack them in the back and just be like, haha, I'm keeping you further away. But you cannot do that. So if you can, you must touch the hull. And then on top of that, if you do roll a 6, now that explosion is actually doing mortals to you as well. It's going to be very, very impactful, I think, especially for a lot of transport-heavy armies. I think it's going to shift up a lot of the gameplay, but again, I'm very excited for it. I am Drukhari, so I'm going to have to brace accordingly for it. But I think it's going to allow for some really interesting interactions, especially because you do have the rules that you cannot embark on a turn in which you disembarked unless the rule states otherwise. Drukhari still get to keep this rule. It is listed in their faction pack, but things like Space Marines, I think this is going to put us into a decent enough place where they're going to be able to potentially still kind of keep things a little bit different. I'd have to double check to see if it says turn or if it says round. I think it might say turn, so you might still get some reactive move back into things. They're still going to be very powerful abilities, but overall, the couple games that I played, I feel it feels very good. It feels very nice. The terrain actually feels decently dense. It feels interactive. I think the thing that's going to be a little different, or little things to get used to, is plunging fire did not come up, which is a little unfortunate because I was really stoked about that rule. I think it'll be terrain dependent. So if you're plus playing a bunch of tournaments with just the L-shaped runes and no actual like platform on there. I think it's gonna be really hard to be able to get that, because one of the things that I was excited with to potentially use Drukhari for is to use that fly minus that 2, pop them on top of a piece of terrain, have them shoot down, and get that extra ballistic skill, and then maybe they benefit from other things. But say la vie. We'll have to see how that works. So, but overall, like the changes, a lot of good stuff there. Lastly, let's talk about armies that I think are going to do well at the start of the edition. Space Marines are still going to be Space Marines. They're still going to be big, beefy. They're going to be difficult. The -1 to the ballistic skill, I don't think is going to hamper them a ton. That being said, armies, if you do have a -1 to the hit roll, highlight that strat, star it, bold it, do whatever you need to, because the -1 to the ballistic skill and the -1 to hit stack. So you can make Space Marines hit you on 5s, which doesn't seem like a ton, but it really is. And then some other armies, you can make them hit on 6s, which is wild. Like I put some guard shooting at 6s. That's incredible. That's a great impact to the game by just being in terrain. So there's going to be a lot of extra bits to that. Just make sure you're paying attention to those. So I think Space Marines are still going to be good. Aeldari, I think, are going to actually be good just because of pure movement. There's a lot of abilities there. There's a lot to move around. And Heroic Intervention, I think, is really going to be beneficial for them. I think it's going to do a lot. Fights First is not what it used to be, but using a 1 CP Heroic Intervention for something that charged within 6, using the defensive one, is actually really, really game changing. That essentially gives you a free activation after your opponent, which is wild. It's a great ability to have. You can really shift the tides. So just be on the lookout for that. I could see Drukhari doing well. Their 1 DP detachments are solid. Not the absolute greatest, but I really love the giving the witches lethal hits, the witch cult units. That includes Hellions. It's fantastic. I think there's a couple good abilities in there. I really like the changes to the Black Templars. This Sword Brethren detachment with 1 DP Martial Household is fantastic. And I think there's a couple other ones that are going to be eating particularly well. Tau are going to really probably love this edition because they have great screening units and they have great spotters, shooters. I think they're really going to set themselves up for it. I'm really curious to see what the counter is going to be for them, but I think that there's plenty of opportunity there. Chaos Space Marines, I think they'll be solid. I mean, the detachments that were 3DP kind of made sense for them. I mean, here's the other thing. I think because we're sitting in a brand new edition, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this detachment is for sure better. This one's for sure worse. But we are sitting fresh. We are in a brand new spot. There's a lot of changes to those core rules. Things are going to feel familiar. And I think that familiarity is going to make people think, oh, well, then I'm thinking with the same brain. This is for sure going to be the best. And I actually don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's going to be quite a few surprises as we make our way through the edition. All we know is it launches this Saturday, so the day after this video comes out on Friday. And I, for one, am excited to see what comes of it. So overall impressions for me, 11th edition, I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited to play some more. I'm literally, as soon as I'm done filming this, I'm going to go build 20 witches that I have, build a new Venom, get that all set up, hopefully get that on the painting table soon, and hopefully start getting in some practice games with those because I am stoked. So, but let me know what you think down in the comments down below. I probably didn't mention a few factions that I think are really good. I'm still very tired, but let me know if you're excited for 11th edition. And of course, if you like this content, feel free to like, share, subscribe. I massively appreciate it. And if any of you have come check me out from the Tabletop Titans streams, a massive thank you to coming over and checking out the channel. I am significantly lower budget than they, but I do what I can. So I massively appreciate every single one of you. And until next time, the new edition is coming where there's a brand new Armageddon box. And I'm willing to bet that you got something to go paint. So I guess you'll just have to go paint something.